Hi there, Dr. Rajiv Iyer here with more secrets on how you can be successful as an international medical graduate doctor in Canada. Here, I'm going to tell you why your Canadian open work permit as an immigrant IMG spouse can be useless. Instead, I'm going to tell you some of the steps you need to take in order to be successful. And let's do this together. When you or your spouse get a job in Canada and move on a work permit, your work permit will be specific to the employer. This is called a closed work permit. Now, your spouse will be eligible to what is called as open work permit, which means they can pretty much work for any employer. Does this not sound very exciting? Canada offers these options, so people who come on work permit can actually bring their spouses who can also be eligible for working. Since the open work permit is not employer specific, someone even commented, this is like a Canadian passport. Trust me, open work permit is not like Canadian passport. Canadian passport is very powerful and open work permit is not. In fact, when I moved to Toronto as a clinical fellow, I moved on a closed work permit and my wife had an open work permit. This is the actual open work permit that she had. The good news is that you don't need to have a job in order to get an open work permit. Earlier, Canada had some restrictions on who gets open work permit. But recently they changed the rules, so this opens door for a lot of people. Now all this is very exciting. I'm going to tell you what actually happens based on the IMGs I've seen. Now you're one happy couple. One of you has a closed work permit. The other one has an open work permit. So what do? Quite natural. You're excited to move to Canada, start your new job. So you quit pretty much everything in your home country and then move to Canada. You land in Canada, everything looks so beautiful. Of course, depends on what part of the world you're coming from. But for the most part, Canada is a beautiful country. The spouse with the closed work permit starts working. They apply for their bank account, get social insurance number, and then they start to get busy with their work. A few weeks to months pass by, and the person on the open work permit usually now starts thinking about, why not I apply for a job? Anyway, I do have an open work permit. This could be a job as a research fellow or as a clinical fellow, or this could be a job in research if you're a fresh graduate who just moved to Canada. I have seen some IMGs, especially females, they get married and then they move to Canada. Now you go to Government of Canada website, you go to Google, you try to find jobs. You do see there are some jobs advertised. So what do? You write to them and apply for job. You know what happens? Nothing happens. You won't hear back from them. Now you start applying for quite a few jobs, the same thing happens. Maybe very few respond back, but most people will not get back to you. Now weeks pass by, months pass by, you start getting frustrated. You're trying to think, what is going on? Why am I not getting any jobs? Well, this happens because there is a limited number of skilled jobs available in Canada. On top of that, there are thousands of applicants wanting to get that job. You see, there is intense competition. There is less number of jobs. So it gets very tricky to find a skilled job. Now, I am not saying you won't get any job at all. You might be able to secure an unskilled job, but getting a skilled job would be very difficult. In general, all open work permits have restrictions. You cannot work in massage parlors or in weird places where there is a possibility of exploitation. Now, this is a good thing because the government of Canada is trying to protect you from getting exploited. The other problem is just because you have a closed work permit or an open work permit, this does not guarantee you in getting a Canadian permanent residency. You still have to go through all the process to make yourself eligible in order to get PR in Canada. Also, the open work permit is tied to the primary job of you or your spouse. In case anything changes with the primary job, then the open work permit job will also get messed up. Now, with all this, am I saying don't move to Canada or don't get an open work permit? That's exactly not what I'm saying. It's a personal choice. However, I want to tell you what to expect once you have an open work permit. Just because you have an open work permit does not mean you'll get a skilled job of your liking. Now, instead of all this, here are some of the things you can do in order to become successful as an international medical graduate doctor in Canada. If you have no choice, and do end up coming on an open work permit, make sure there are no restrictions. One scenario I can think of is if you come on an open work permit without any medical examination, you cannot work in healthcare settings. So make sure you don't come up with any such restrictions, because ultimately you want to be successful in the healthcare setting. You could be a physician, you could be a nurse, you could be a technologist, or you could be any skilled worker working in a hospital. This is very important for you to know. Don't fall for scams. There are a lot of people who may promise getting open work permits or jobs. So just be aware of these and be careful of that. Know your rights when you're working somewhere. Canada offers a robust infrastructure to protect workers. In fact, there is a whole list of employers who have been banned because of violating rules. So make sure you're aware of these rules. The open work permit is completely based on the primary closed work permit. You and your spouse need to have a good relationship for this to work. Just wanted to say that. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to come on an employer-specific work permit. You know how you can do that? When your spouse is applying for a job and trying to get a work permit, you do exactly the same. You apply for a job. So both of you plan in such a way that you have two closed work permits. So this will ensure you work in a job of your liking, plus it also secures you just in case something were to go wrong with one of the work permits. With this, both of you can get Canadian experience and be eligible to get Canada PR. Now, how can you do this? Here is what I have. A video exactly made for that, on the importance of why you should move on a work permit and not directly get a Canada PR. Do check this out. And I also have a lot of videos on how you can be successful as an international medical graduate doctor in the description. Do check them out. Overall, I want to say whether an open work permit is a good idea for you or not will depend on a lot of factors like your goals, what do you want to achieve coming to Canada, your eligibility. I want to caution you to weigh all your options and make a wise choice, and also consult a professional and seek their advice before you make any immigration decisions. Any questions? Post in the comments below. I try to get back to you as soon as possible. Take care, stay safe, I will talk to you soon. When your spouse secures a work permit, you as the spouse of someone having an open work, now one person has a closed work permit, the other person now has an open work permit. You and your family are pretty excited. You